Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin and I like to film eyeshadow palette ranking and review videos, as well as the occasional other beauty content sprinkled in. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post 2 videos typically every single week. As you can tell from my voice, I am not feeling well. So last week I only posted 1 video, but it was a big video. So I feel like that's okay. And then I post my occasional shorts too, so there's content always flowing over here. And for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. I have been so sick the last week. I have not done makeup at all, which is weird for me. I do makeup every day. That's part of my routine. So anyways, that's how you know that I'm not feeling well. But this was my plan for my first video of the new year. I wanted to talk to you all about it was a tag floating around, and to be honest, I cannot for the life of me remember which creator I saw do it, which inspired me to do it. I just wrote it down as an idea and it's been in the back of my head, and I literally have no idea who started it. If you know who started it or you've seen somebody do it, let me know who it was in the comments, and I will make sure to tag their video in the description box. I could search it and try and remember to do that, but I know I won't, so I don't want to make any false promises. So anyways, comment down below if you know who came up with this idea. But as you can see from the title, I want to talk about if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes out of my entire collection, which is roughly 140 palettes. If I could only keep 10 of those, which 10 would I keep and why? And there's going to be some special challenge added to this. So if that sounds interesting to you, then you should definitely like this video, give it a thumbs up, and go ahead and keep on watching. So I mentioned this, I think it was when I was doing the tags that were like, if you could only keep 1 palette from each brand, or if you had to declutter 1 palette from each brand. I floated the idea of if I did I could only keep 10 palettes total, which 10 would I keep if I actually only let myself use those 10 palettes for a month. Sort of like a shop my stash, but a little different. And so a lot of you were into that idea. And I was like, okay, yes, I will do it. But I had to wait because I bought a lot of eyeshadow palettes in October, November, and I didn't want to bring myself down, and not be able to use my new stuff. So January is the perfect time because I ordered, I think, just 2 palettes in December. I ordered the Pastel Roses 2 new palettes, and I've never tried Pastel Roses before. But anyways, those were I'm on my low buy, so you all know that watch my channel. My low buy means that I can only buy 1 palette per month unless it's a designated list of brands that I'm allowing myself to buy as many as I want to. But anyways, I did buy 2 palettes from Pastel Roses, but it was 1 launch, so that counts, right? Anyways, I bought that in December. Those 2 palettes might show up sometime in the month of January, but if I use them, it's only going to be on a day where I have to use another palette, still do a look that day, or I'll just add to make sure that it's at least 30 whole days of only using these 10 palettes. Does that make sense? I'm making sure to give you 30 days, even if I have to do the Pastel Roses stuff in the middle. I also have 2 more looks left for my Natasha Denona series, so we might extend this a little bit so that I have those days. But anyways, whatever, you don't care about all that, right? You just want to hear which 10 palettes I would use if I could only use 10 palettes, which I would keep and why, right? Let's do it. Let's talk about what I have on today, because today was the first day of it. So I did use this look, and I will say I did get the color case from Made by Mitchell, and so I used this green here as a base for the shimmers that I used in this palette. So anyways, I'm not not letting myself use my special liners or my special pigments or whatever. I'm allowed to use all of that stuff because that's in my collection, okay? It's just 10 eyeshadow palettes plus all the special stuff. And I think by doing this challenge, I'm gonna end up using my special stuff more, but anyways, you don't care about that. So I do have the color case on, but really what I have on my eyes is the first palette we'll talk about, which is the Illumiage and Kathleen Lights collab, the Disco Fox palette. I definitely wanted to make sure to include a neutral palette, And Kathleen said, like, this is the only palette she needs, like, this is it for her. And so I thought, you know, could this be it for me as well? Let's see if we can try that test. Is this the perfect neutral palette and the only neutral palette you need in your collection? I don't know. So I wanted to try it out. I do really like this neutral palette, and I do like the shimmers, and I reach for, out of all my neutral palettes, I tend to reach for this one the most. So that's why I figured this was my best bet. And it includes, you know, like some peachy, warm, like, you know, burgundy stuff happening with the purple. So I felt like you get some variety, but I obviously used the browns in my crease for today's look. So yeah, so that's the first palette of the 10. Number 2 out of the 10 might surprise some of you, but the Fairy Tale Fairy palette, the Fairy Tale Fairies palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. That was difficult. I just felt like I needed some pastels, and I don't tend to like pastel palettes, but of my pastel palettes, I like this one the best. And this one is somewhat new to my collection, so I wanted to be able to play with it a little bit more. So I used this shade. I tapped over where I put the Made by Mitchell like green pigment, and it worked really nice. And then I tapped this green shimmer right in the middle to like kind of highlight the center of my lid. So yeah, really enjoying this palette that I've, like the shades I've used so far. I haven't even used every shade in it yet, but I wanted to give myself an opportunity to play with this a bit more. But I also just feel like I like these pastels the best out of all the pastels in my collection, and I felt like I need something with pastels. So I also, just if you're curious, I'm using the Artist palette. This is the collab between Rowie Singh and Glisten Cosmetics. I use this dark brown liner. That's the liner that I'm using. So yeah, that's basically the eye makeup that I have on. Oh, more eye makeup. I have the Chartreuse matte eyeliner from House Labs in my waterline, and then I use the Blend Bunny Noctilucent highlighter palette, and then that's what's in the inner corner. So anyways, okay. And I will allow myself to use my Noctilucent palette as my inner corner highlight because I use it as my face highlight too, so that counts. All right, number 3 out of the palettes that, if I could only keep 10 palettes, which 10 would I keep? This is the Strange and Unusual palette from Bella Beauté Bar. Listen, I had to have some special shimmers, and Bella Beauté Bar is one of my new favorite brands, and I just could not live without these special shimmers that are in this palette. I think they are amazing. I love the color story of this palette. The mattes in this palette are not my favorite, but I do feel like I'm able to get them to work, so I don't mind them. The only matte that I don't love is, I think, yeah, this matte white isn't the best. You see, it's a little bit thin. So that shade requires a lot of building, but I feel like I can get the rest of the shades to do what I want them to do. When I've done looks, it's just really the matte white isn't as pigmented as I would like it to be, but it's okay. Anyways, so it's really about the shimmers in here, and then I feel like I can combine this palette with the other palettes in the 10 to get like my perfect looks with some mattes and stuff. So that is that. Next up, palette number 4 is going to be my Blend Bunny Surge palette. I have said multiple times, I think, on this channel, I could probably just only have Blend Bunny mattes and then whatever shimmers I want from other palettes and be perfectly happy. Like, I really could just live my life with the Blend Bunny mattes. So I decided to put my money where my mouth is and keep the Blend Bunny palettes. This palette obviously has the neons. This palette has some really nice like grungy pastels, but they're not like, let me just compare them to the other pastels so you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, some of these pastels are similar, but they're just like a little bit brighter. Like, this has a little bit more of like a neon pastel, whereas these are like truly like a muted, more grungy pastel. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyways, that's why I'm rationalizing the Fairy Tale Fairies palette. But I feel like you've got like some more grungy jewel tones in here, the neon brights. I just think this palette has a lot to offer. This is opposite of my Strange and Unusual palette in that I don't really like the shimmers in this palette, but it's got mattes that I want to work with. So I think this will be a good palette for the 10 that I could keep. Next up is the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Primo palette. Listen, I said I was putting my money where my mouth is, and I feel like between these two, I have everything I need, matte color story wise. So yeah, that's why I'm keeping this one. I do like the shimmers in this palette a little bit more, but they are darker, but I have the lighter shimmers in the other palettes that I can pair with these, so I think it's all fine. And do I really need the Bella Beauté white to be that great? No, because this one's awesome. So that is that. All right, this will shock none of you, but the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 4 Transcendence palette. I couldn't not have this be on the list. I want to play with this palette all the time. So this is definitely a palette that will be combined with probably my mattes from my Blend Bunny or any of the other mattes from any of the other palettes. But I love this palette. I think it's amazing. I think it's super fun. So yeah, I want to have that be in the 10. Next up is the Angles of Illumination 3 from Bella Beauté Bar. It's another special shimmer palette, but I feel like these are a little bit different. You have like kind of this like really vibrant pink and more of the like teal green, and then you have these that can kind of shift more neutrally or more greeny. So I just think this will pair nicely with a lot of the mattes I have and give me some options for some different fun, you know, looks. Next up is the Melt Cosmetics Gemini 2 palette. I couldn't not include a Melt palette because Melt is one of my favorite brands. And I didn't want to include any of Melt's palettes that go a little bit more neutral because I have neutral in the Il Makiage palette. So I went with this one because you have like these like rosy tone neutrals, but then you also have the grungy greens. And I feel like this was adding something that I wasn't getting from the mattes that I had picked out in the palettes I had so far. I felt like this was adding to it. So that's why I picked this one. I also think that the like greens in this palette, like those green shimmers, will go really nicely with this palette. So yeah, that's why I picked this one. And I love Melt's mattes, and I just felt like some days I'm in the mood for like a really grungy look, and so I needed to have at least one palette that gave me full grunge. So that was the Melt palette for me. Next up is the Ace Beauté Paletopoly palette. This was one of my favorite palettes from last year. I think it was my favorite palette. I don't remember. You'll have to watch my ranking video to confirm. This palette color story is a little bit all over the place when you first look at it, but I have a blast. I don't know why. I find it super inspiring. So I love playing with this palette. So of course I would want to continue to play with it. And it gives me, you know, more browns if I really want them. Also some differences in like the purple mattes that are in this. And I just really like the shimmer formula, and I just love this palette. So I wanted to include it. So that's the way it is. If you've been counting, those were 9 palettes. We're at number 10. It's the Bperfect and Stacy Marie Carnival 5 Interstellar palette. Listen, if I'm being kept to 10 palettes, I'm going to keep the biggest palette in the bunch to give me as many options as possible. But the main reason I kept this one, I love this like gray toned section. Oh, it's so pretty. It's what makes me love this palette so much. And I really liked the brightness of the pastels in this palette. To be honest, if I could have gotten my pastel like hits from this palette, but I felt like there was just something about the Fairy Tale Fairy shimmers that made me want to use that a bit more. And then the Fairy Tale Fairies has a little bit more, like the pastel greens and blues are like a little bit lighter than these pastel greens and blues. So that's why I picked that one. But anyways, I just felt like I could probably just use this palette for 30 days and have this just be my only palette to use because you have like pretty much every combination other than like neutral browns in here. But anyways, yeah, I just really wanted to use this one. I really enjoyed this palette when I did my 7 looks with it. Let me see, actually, let me run through. I have a 7 looks video. I never remember to say this, but check my description box. I will have the videos. If I featured any of these palettes on my channel, I will have the videos with those palettes where I feature them linked in the description box. So I definitely have a 7 looks video with that palette. So if you were interested, that will be linked in my description box. I also think I have a 2 looks video with this one. I have an initial review of this one, an initial review of this one, and then I want to say I have looks, at least 1 video with 1 look of these 2 palettes. It might be 3 looks, but I can't remember. And then the Il Makiage and Kathleen Lights palette. So most of those I have videos with. The only 2 that I don't are the only 3 are the 2 Bella Beauté Bar palettes and the Simply Posh palette. So anyways, but those are the 10 palettes that if I could only keep 10, those are the 10 that I would use. And don't argue with me in the comments because I spent 2 months tweaking this list, going back and forth. If you're going to say, I'm shocked there's no Viseart on here, I know, and there was Viseart on here a couple of times, but I've rotated it out and I just felt like I had enough mattes and I didn't need Busy Arts mattes, but yeah. The only bad part about this is I don't really have a travel size palette, so like if I were going anywhere in the month of January, I'd be like, I don't have anything to really travel with. So that's where Viseart would come in, but I'm not traveling this month, so it doesn't matter. So anyways, this video is probably all over the place because I'm sick still and my brain's not working, but let me know what you think about the 10 that I picked in the comments down below. I will be doing like kind of a vlog, checking in like day 1, day 5, day 10, whatever, throughout the month, and then putting that together in a video and sharing my final thoughts on what it was like only using 10 palettes for an entire month. So yeah, if you want to see how this goes, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, but that will be coming in like a month or so. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking now and I will see you all next time. Bye!